Hi and welcome to another reading vlog. In February I did this reading vlog reading Ice Hockey Romances, and doing that I read Game Changer by Reid, and I immediately became so obsessed with it that I immediately bought the rest of the series. I already owned Rivalry, but like still. And I have been thinking about binging the series non-stop ever since then. I have put the brakes on it a little bit as you might have been able to tell, because I have been reading vlogs coming out since, but those were on the docket for like I had planned for like quite some time, so I felt like I had to go with them first. But now it's finally time, and I'm gonna binge my way through this entire series, and I'm so excited. I'm gonna take you along for it. This is gonna be entirely spoiler free. I think this might screw me over with that, but I'm gonna try and keep this spoiler free. So yeah, there's just gonna be kind of like my complete series vlogs that I've done before, where I just read an entire series in one vlog that are also very spoiler free. But obviously I have already read this book, so I won't be talking about it. It's just gonna be continuing on with the series and kind of, you know, just I'm indulging myself. Let me do that. I don't do that very often. Despite being a mood reader, I don't indulge myself very often. I am gonna do that right now, so I'm gonna have fun with that. Hopefully that's what we're gonna do today. Hopefully you like this video. I am hoping that if I like this, I'm gonna do it more often, because there are a lot of series that I would love to do like a vlog for, but I have read already like the first book of the series, so I feel like I can do like a full series vlog without the first book. But if this goes well, I might do more of like continuing series vlogs. So let's hope this goes well. Anyway, if you don't know the Game Changer series, it's the book series that Heated Rivalry show is based on, but Heated Rivalry specifically is based on the second book. And there are a series of interconnected standalone romances, except Heated Rivalry, which has a direct sequel in the long game. And yeah, they're fun. I had such a good time with this first book. I loved it so much. It took me by surprise by how much I loved it. I'm very excited to continue on with it. But the books that I'm going to be reading in this vlog in particular, because that's all you care about, is Heated Rivalry, of course, Tough Guy, Common Goal, Role Model, and The Long Game. I will be reading these in order. I know I've seen, because of the Heated Rivalry show, I've seen a lot of people binge through the series. I know some people like kind of jump around, but I like reading books in order, hence why I started with the first book. But yeah, I'm just gonna read them in order that I just talked about, which is the series order, and then we'll see how things go. I'm just starting off with Heated Rivalry, and I'm so excited for this actually. Okay, so I'm a quarter of the way through Heated Rivalry. I'm so glad I am, because honestly, I had to read another book in between doing the intro and this, because I realized my hold was expiring on it as an ebook from my library, and it was such a slog to get through, even though I enjoyed it, because all I wanted to do was read this book. In case you don't know anything about Heated Rivalry, for some reason I still click on this video. In this book we follow Shane and Ilya, who are two very promising rookie hockey players at the start of this book, and they're kind of both seen as kind of like top of the game, and therefore are very much pitted against each other kind of by the press. And it only becomes worse when both of them kind of get drafted to two teams that already have a really long history of an intense rivalry between them, and basically they themselves have some interest in each other that goes beyond just being rivals, if you catch my drift. And they kind of start casually hooking up, and it takes place over like 7 years, I believe, as this will they won't they kind of thing happens between them, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm a quarter of the way through this book and I really like it, and the one thing I'm most shocked at so far is just how faithful the show is. Like, I knew it was a very faithful adaptation. I've seen a lot of people talk about that, but it's generally like one for one sometimes. And it's kind of crazy, kind of like reading dialogue and literally hearing the actors, because it's like the exact same as in the show. So that I'm really liking, obviously. But then also my main issue with kind of like the first couple of episodes of the show is that when we jump around with kind of like these time jumps, I felt very kind of like disconnected within that format, and it didn't really work for me that well. And then the second half of the show that is more like in one timeline, that worked much better for me. But the jumping around definitely works better in this book format, having more of kind of like the internal monologue and having more explanation of like where we're at and what we're doing. All of that works way better for me, and I had a feeling that's why I picked up this book, that in written format it would work better for me than in the show, and I'm very glad to say that that's definitely the case. But I'm also just like having a good time reading this. I really like the dynamic between Shane and Ilya. Ilya is someone who has already had relationships with guys, so he is a bit more confident within the whole thing, but also like still a bit figuring out what he feels and like the difference between hatred because he's his rival, but also obviously having his attraction to him. But with Shane, this is like the first time he's really experiencing feelings for a guy, so he's a bit more hesitant and kind of like has a bit more of a slow approach to things, and I really like that as well. I feel like the dichotomy between the two is very interesting to see. Also already just like from their personal storylines, something that's really interesting to see that both of them are under an immense amount of pressure just from very different places. Like Shane very much has pressure on him to be kind of like the perfect hockey player, if that makes sense. Or he just wants to be the best, and he feels like he has to be the best, and everyone is kind of like depending on him to be so. While for Ilya, the pressure of being a really good hockey player comes more so with the better he is at hockey, the more of a distance he creates between himself and his not that great household. I will not say it's abusive because you have not seen that much from it, but like what I know from the show, I have a very high suspicion that it's gonna turn out that way. So I think those things are also very interesting, and I'm very excited to keep reading. Okay, so I'm now halfway through Rivalry. I have to say I'm losing steam with this book a little bit, but I think that's also me. I'm getting a little bit tired, just in general. I am still really liking this book. I feel like in this last quarter of the book that I've read, we have been getting more of developing feeling, just like very slowly and creeping in, and Shane and Ilya both not really knowing what to do with it or even recognizing it because they've gotten so used to their rhythm, I guess, and also because they both have things going on that make it hard to accept these feelings, especially with Shane, who is still just kind of in denial about being gay a little bit. Just very interesting to see that, especially as a contrast to the first book in the series, Game Changer, which I feel like for that a lot of kind of like the conflict and the issues were because of outside factors that influenced how our characters were feeling. While here it's like very internal, and it makes sense, and I think it's just really great to see that as like back to back from the series, like, except not back to back because I read Game Changer like a month ago now, but like still, you know what I mean. And yeah, I don't know, I'm having a good time still with this book, and I do feel like from what I remember from the show and just kind of like the general feeling about this book, I feel like I'm at a turning point a little bit within their journey right now, so I'm very excited to keep reading and see how that goes. I have a quarter left of Heated Rivalry, and just like the show, the second half of this is definitely easily my favorite. I love just the emotional depth we get into in the second half, and it gets rough out there, but it's so good, and I'm already can't wait for like this last quarter because obviously I know what's going to happen. Also in the Game Changer timeline, I love the book so much, so I'm having a good time just picking up on references like the storyline going on there, but also just from the show I know what's gonna happen next, and I'm so ready for that because I feel like there's gonna be such a strong payoff just because we get that much more depth, obviously, by having the inner monologue of these characters as well. And I want it, except it's really late, so I won't get it until tomorrow. But yeah, I'm having a really good time again with these books. I finished the Rivalry. I really like this book. I gave it 5 stars. I do have to say I prefer Game Changer just because it's a little bit up to my personal taste a bit more, but I thought that this was a great book. Like, it's so emotionally heavy though. Like, I read this entire book kind of with a heavy heart, especially that second half where we get more into these characters' emotions and things. And I just thought it was really well executed, and then kind of like the more lovey moments they get towards the last quarter of this book, which is what I read, just they hit so much harder because you've seen the hardship that led up to it. And I don't know, I really like the story. I also really like Ilya and Shane just as characters. It's kind of funny because I didn't consider this book a funny book because, like I said, it just feels so emotionally heavy. But when you look at my tabs, like there's a lot of like this like brownish color in here, which I use for funny moments, but that's just purely Ilya's humor. Like, he's so like dry and sarcastic, and I chuckled at him so much. At first, I genuinely thought this was going to be a 4-star because that first half just was so sex forward, which isn't my typical preference, but I do feel like everything we did in that first half was necessary for the impact of the second half to hit the way it was supposed to, so I can't even complain about that either. Hi, so I am 100 pages into Tough Guy. Should probably take my pen on that. So I thought I'd give you an update. This is the 3rd book in the series, obviously, and this one follows Ryan, who is a hockey player, but he gets transferred teams quite a lot, because the only purpose teams seem to see him in is to just like fight on other teammates' behalf and like protect them, and like not necessarily, you know, for his own hockey playing skills. And he's really kind of been struggling with that. And recently he's been transferred to Toronto, where he bumps into Fabian, who is a water main character, and he is a very flamboyant queer man. He's also a musician, and when he still lived at home, his parents would oftentimes take in hockey players from like that, because his dad is a hockey coach, and if they came in from like different areas, they would sometimes live with them. That makes sense. And therefore he's kind of gotten a distaste of hockey players, because as I said, he's a very flamboyant queer man, and he was even so as a teenage boy, so he had a lot of negative experience with some of these homophobic hockey players living in his house. And the only exception to that was Ryan. Like Ryan was one of the people that also stayed at his house when he was younger, and they like didn't necessarily have a friendship, but they did get along like relatively easily, and they had crushes on each other without obviously knowing about the other person. So when they bump into each other in Toronto now, it kind of sparks fly again, and they keep kind of bumping into each other, and obviously it's gonna be a romance, and I'm having a fun time with this. I'm not as in love with this as I was with kind of Heated Rivalry and Game Changer, but I'm enjoying my time with this. I do have to say I have a weak spot for Ryan. He has anxiety and maybe a bit of a depression. I don't know, I hasn't been diagnosed, but he has been diagnosed with anxiety, taking meds for it, and mentally he's just in an off place, which is partially also because he has moved around a lot and feeling like he can never like can put his roots down, but he also feels undervalued within the teams that he's been in, obviously because they don't actually recruit him for his capabilities as a hockey player. They recruit him because he's a big guy and he knows how to throw a punch, and that's, he doesn't really like doing that, so that's also playing into things. And I want to give this man a hug so badly. Like I feel for him, I genuinely do, and I think Rachel Reid has done a great job kind of portraying his mental health struggles in his book, so at least so far. So I really like what's happening to it. And throughout this book he's also so far forming a friendship with this guy on his team named Wyatt, who is the kind of like backup goalie, so he also doesn't really get to play a lot. Same with Wyatt. Wyatt is very in tune with kind of Ryan's struggles and just like picks up on his anxieties and stuff, and therefore he knows how to interact with him, if that makes sense. And they have been like very slowly so far forming this friendship. I think it's really precious. Fabian, I think, is a bit harder of a character for me to grasp onto. I don't know, so far I know he likes making music and he hates hockey, but I feel like I don't know that much about him just yet. And yeah, I think the scenes between the two of them have been cute so far, but like obviously they're just starting to reconnect, so it's not like there's much romance going on, but I'm very excited to continue reading. Hi, I'm currently 200 pages into Tough Guy, which means I only have 100 pages left. This is the shortest book in a series, so I'm flying through this. Taking my pen off again, so it looks prettier for you. But quite a lot has happened since I last talked to you. I feel like we made a lot of progress within the relationship, and I honestly think these are just really cute. I feel like Scott and Kip from Game Changer are like bumbling idiots. Shayna and Ilya are doomed lovers, and then Ryan and Fabian are just cutie pies. Like, I don't know, they just have such an effortlessness between them, and such, I don't know, just a comfort between them that I really like. And I think their relationship generally is just like adorable and precious, and I really like how that's progressing to this book. And I don't take any of that to say that this doesn't have sex scenes, because I literally just read quite a few. But something I especially like about this is that with Ryan's self-esteem issues, and also because Ryan is taking anxiety meds, it is affecting his like sex drive, but then also on top of that he has a lot of self-esteem issues, and that's also playing into things more than he's willing to admit. Maybe the sex scenes that we had between Ryan and Fabian are just very communicative, and it's like very much like, what do you need from me right now, what do you like, what's going on, and like really it's like, is this okay, and like stuff like that. Really constantly checking in with each other, reassuring each other, also cracking some jokes, and I really like it. I feel like that's something that isn't that common in romance. I feel like it's coming up more and more, and I feel like it's still a little bit rare to see like such communicative right off the bat like sex scene. I really like that. I also really like how, even though Ryan might not fully be aware of how much his own self-doubt issues are playing into things. He is very open to Fabian about that he does have some insecurities, and that's also playing into things, and it's not just his medication that's throwing him off. So I don't know, I really like that element of it. I have to say that Fabian kind of feels like a bit of an afterthought of a character in this book, which I do think is a bit of a shame, because I do get that we know more about Ryan because he's much more stuck in his head, so there's a lot more in a monologue. But I feel like Fabian, I feel like he's just out of reach. You know what I mean? It feels already like a fully completed character. It doesn't have to go to a character arc in a book, and more so kind of feels more like a side character than a main character sometimes. And I do feel like it could have been just a little bit more effort put into that character, just in general. Hi, so I finished Tough Guy. I'm giving this 4 stars. I don't really know what else to say that I haven't said yet. The only thing I have to add is that I thought the third act conflict was a little bit stupid, but then I did like the resolution of it, so who knows. I love the epilogue of this one. It almost has nothing to do with the main couple, but I think it's really fun. That's all I want to say, but I think this deals with Ryan's mental health really well, and I like the progression of that through the story. I think the relationship between Ryan and Fabian is very precious, very sweet to me, while also like having great sexy moments. The only real complaint I really have with this book is that I do feel like Fabian is an underrealized character, and like I've talked about that before. So that's why it's a 4 out of 5, which is a little bit disappointing, but a 4 is still great, you know. I'll take a 4 any time of the week. Hi, so I'm 200 pages into Common Goal by Rachel Reid. I was supposed to update you at the 100-page mark, but I kind of kept reading, so I didn't. But I can tell you about it now. In this book, we follow Eric, who is one of Scott's teammates. He's actually the goalie for the New York team, and he, about a year ago, got divorced from his wife, and now he's like in what appears to be his final season as a hockey player as well. And he just kind of, he's always thought he was bi, but now with all of this going on, he kind of wants to start exploring his attraction towards men. And we also follow Kyle, who is a bartender who we've also met in a Game Changer, because he is one of Kip's friends, and he actually has a big crush on Kip, which is a big deal because, you know, Kip is getting married to Scott. I'm so excited. I like these little bits about their wedding and how they got engaged and such. I'm eating it up, but that's besides the point. So the two cross paths and kind of have this attraction to each other, and Kyle, kind of like as a distraction from his feelings for Kip, offers to kind of teach Eric how to be with guys, I guess, like learn how to flirt and like pick up guys, try and find what his type is, stuff like that, and just be like a little bit of a coaching to the exploring of sexual identity. But of course, because they have like some attraction to each other, things got more complicated than that. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Like, holy sexual tension, like in this book, it's actually insane, especially at this point where I'm at. Like, they've had sex, but like before that, it was just, oh, it was so good because it was just so well written. And I kind of loved the dynamic because this is also an age gap romance. From what I remember, Eric is 41 and Kyle is 25, so it's like a huge deal, but like, it is an age gap. And there was a lot within, like, before they actually get together, where, or like get together, they're not together, but like they've had sex. But before that, there's a lot of moments where they kind of like both can sense the attraction between them and think like, oh, it's just a moment. But I'm like, there's no way this person is actually into me, with Eric thinking that Kyle can possibly be into all the guys, and Kyle for a long time not even knowing that Eric is into guys as well. So I don't know, I really love that tension where they're both like, is this happening? And like, no, it can't be happening, like we're not each other's types. And then like at the same time also like when they have conversations about what Eric's type is and like stuff like that, and then Kyle also goes into his type, they do so in a way to not want to make it obvious that they have feelings for the other person. So there's also therefore coming at the other person being like, oh, so they're not describing me at all, so they can't possibly be into me. And I don't know, I really like kind of that back and forth between them, and I feel like the way it's done is in a way that isn't like frustrating. I feel like it is really well done, and it just kind of feels like a back and forth between them constantly that way, and the tension was just built so well. And now they are starting to have sex, but like they still have that element where it is more like a friends with benefits type situation, and they haven't really fully realized that they like have feelings for each other, but then like also at the same time like, why do I feel this way? And like we're getting into that discovering feelings stage. But this is a lot of fun to read, so I'm gonna go and continue doing that. Okay, so I finished Common Goal, I'm giving this 4 stars because I just think that I that this romance just was a little bit like too lust focused for me. I don't know. I feel like in these characters' denial of being able to have feelings for each other, we also just didn't see them develop feelings for each other and develop their relationship emotionally. Everything just felt so like physical and lust based in a way that I personally am not the greatest fan of. But besides that, I did still have a really good time with this book. I flew through it, and I do really like both of these characters, and I do like the relationship. I just maybe that's why I feel even more disappointed by this, that I really like the relationship. I just wanted more from it, you know? And yeah, I also really like both of the characters and like their journeys. I do also wish that with Kyle we got a little bit more resolution than what we got. I feel like he definitely still is like in a pain, in a place of working through things. But Eric's storyline about retirement I thought was really interesting, and how that was executed was really well done in my opinion. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this book. I'm also tired, so maybe it might be why, but yeah, I did really like this. Hi, what's up? I'm on my period. I feel like shit, but I'm 100 pages into Role Model, so that's something. I read this book a bit hard to describe a synopsis of, but I'm gonna try. In this book, we follow Troy, who has recently things haven't been going his way with his long-term boyfriend breaking up with him for someone else, and him not being able to like talk to it about anyone because he's like very deep in the closet, and like nobody even knew he was dating someone. And then around the same time, like he got into like the big scandal that kind of turned public favor against him and also caused him to be traded to another team, Ottawa, who that team that isn't the best. In fact, they're considered the worst of the league. So he's just feeling like shit, and that's well he gets confronted by Harris, who is the team's PR guy. He runs the social media and everything, and he has kind of been tasked with cleaning up Joy's image a little bit. And Harris also very quickly takes it upon himself to, because Harris is very much the sunshine to Troy's grump, and he's very determined to pull out some lightheartedness within Troy as well. And I feel like that's basically the setup of this book. Obviously, it's a romance between Harris and Troy, but even though it's not like a real in-depth synopsis I have for you, and I have a hard time explaining really the setup for this book, I will say I am really liking it so far. Especially Troy, who I wasn't expecting, because we have seen Troy in 2 other books. A tough guy mostly, and then like a couple of like I think one small appearance in Common Goal. And he is not the kindest person. In fact, he's in Tough Guy he was best friends with Dallas, who is kind of like the asshole of the team and like is widely hated even by other teams and such. So we didn't have the greatest view of Troy, and in this book obviously we delve more into that, and it is very clear that Troy kind of turns to be an asshole because he is so deeply closeted, and he was so afraid of people finding out, of even suspecting slightly that he might be into men, and then being thrown into this team which is full of very toxic people just in general just made it very easy to hide within that. And now more recently, by getting into that long-term relationship, he slowly kind of started to kind of not be okay with it anymore and wanting to be a better person. And now, especially with the breakup, a new team, a bit of a start over, he wants to kind of set things right to show that he's not an homophobic, misogynistic asshole, and that it was kind of like a mask he was putting on without necessarily having to come out because he's still terrified of that. And I don't know, I think that isn't the easiest thing to do in a book. I feel like there's, you know, way better ways to show someone's closeted than make them an asshole, but it's also like a response that happens a lot for people to just go so completely in the other direction. And I do think that's an interesting storyline, and I already have found myself very endeared to Troy, and also really like him being at Ottawa, because that's the new team he's been traded at, Ottawa. So that means he is with Wyatt and Ilya. Just this whole team is such a vibe switch from the team that he was in, which was a very toxic place. These guys were all like very much friends and like get along really well, and then are also more inclusive and like open-minded. So I really like that that's the environment he's now into, and now he feels kind of out of place a little bit, where there are certain scenes where he's like expecting a reaction and it's like, oh, that's not what's happening here, and he's a little confused by that, and I really liked it. And of course I also really like Harris. I always love a Sunshine character, and he's so chatty and like so social, and he loves hockey so much, and he's also so interesting to kind of see his mindset going into like how he runs the social media and everything, and how he's so passionate about his job. I really like that. But then like I also just love how he befriends everyone on the team just so easily, and he even recognizes like this is not typical for someone in my job position, but the team is just so open and social and friendly, and so is he, and it just blends really well. And also so far really like his dynamic with Troy, where he's just like very obviously trying to pull Troy out of his shell, just seeing something there, and he's not exactly sure what it is, but he does see some promise in Troy and doesn't just see the asshole that everyone has seen him as up to this point. So I'm very excited to see their relationship developed with this book, and I'm very curious especially to see Troy's development with this book, because obviously he's still very deeply afraid to come out and very deep into the closet. I'm very interested to see how that's gonna go by the end of this. Not to say that he has to have like a very public coming out, but I will presume that when he ends up with Harris, there will be at least coming out to the people around him. So yeah, really liking this. Okay, so I'm at page 200 of War Model, and this is gonna be a 5-star. I just feel it in my gut. I'm really loving this, and also just want to do a little side tangent about Ilya in this book. He, every time he's on a page, I feel like Rachel Reid is trying to break my heart. I'm not ready for the long game. I really am not. But when it comes to our two main characters, I'm really loving Troy's character journey in this book. Like he currently, I might he's like actively activating for sexual assault victims, which yes, let's go. And he really is really out there just making an effort, which I really enjoy. And the more he's spending time around this team, the more he's realizing just how toxic his whole team was, and he can't believe he ever fell in with him and was part of that toxicity. And it just it's so beautifully done, and I'm obsessed with it. I also just love Harris. He's such a sweetie pie of a character. And something else I really like is most of this book is Troy and like his journey. I feel like that's a big part of it. But unlike Tough Guy, where I felt like that also had wine mainly at the center, and then Fabian a little bit less, I do feel like Harris is a much more well realized character, so kind of his own things going on. Like I feel like his passions are very clear in his book. I also just love kind of the little bits you get to see of his family, and how he really has this very warm personality, drawing people in and just being a bit of a light in everyone's life. And I don't know, I love him a lot, and I love the relationship a lot, where at this point in the book it's like very careful, because both of them don't really feel like worthy of the other person, with Troy kind of being like, why deserve someone much better, not someone who constantly fucks up like him, like how he sees himself. And then Harris constantly is just like, oh, but what would like a hot as fuck hockey player ever see in me? I don't know, I really like how this book is dealing with both of those insecurities and seeing that come true. Again, I also just say that I hate every time Troy is like, I take from Harris and I don't give anything, because the amount of scenes we have in this book where he just shows up and like the littlest of ways, but like such important ways, constantly for Harris, is just like there's just so many like small things where it's like so obvious he's paying attention to every detail when it comes to Harris. And it just, how can he still say that he just takes and doesn't give, when his whole personality is just kind of like taking care of Harris in like all these very small ways? And I don't know, it's hitting my soul, and I'm really loving this book. We have a 5-star. I love this book so much. Like honestly, the ending like almost made me tear up, because just the amount of quotes Troy had through this book, sublime. Like he's very like recognizable from who he is in Tough Guy, especially. Damn. And also something I really like in this book is that Troy coming out isn't just because of his relationship with Harris, but just more so about the general safe space that he's in right now, and with the team and everyone, he just being so accepting around him, and him experiencing that for the first time instead of like all the toxicity. And it just, and I love this book so much. Hi, so I am 200 pages into the long game. I was gonna update you at page 100, but yesterday I was struggling a lot with a video that wouldn't export, and I kept reading this while things were exporting because, you know, there's nothing to do except stare at the screen then. So I thought I would read in between times, but because it took so long, I actually read a lot. But Jesus Christ, this book, it is so sad, but also so full of love. I don't know, I feel like one moment I'm going ear to ear, and the other moment I'm like close to crying. This is a rough read. But it's so good. I definitely already prefer this over the Rivalry. In case you don't know, this one follows Shane and Ilya yet again. Actually, fun fact, where I am right now, the timeline of role model is starting to kick in, which honestly makes us feel so much rougher because Ilya in this book is depressed. Like, he's drowning, he's struggling. And doing role model, I did notice a couple of times where I feel like Ilya wasn't feeling his best, and you could tell that he was a bit down. But to kind of see in this book just how much he is struggling, and the fact that, and he does put up a brave face. I feel like a lot of discussions I've seen around this book is a discussion about, like, is Shane a good or a bad boyfriend for not noticing how much Ilya is struggling. But like, I'm only halfway through. There has been a moment where Shane definitely noticed something, and he tries to ask Ilya about how he's feeling, and Ilya assures him that he's alright, and like, he definitely puts up very much so a brave face. Like, he currently is in therapy and he hasn't told anyone about that because he doesn't really want anyone to know that he's struggling. And to see all of that and see how he's masking and how he's trying to hide how much he is actually struggling, and as a reader seeing how much he is struggling, and then thinking like, oh, we're right now at the time where role model stars, you're like, I didn't even notice as a reader and role model that Ilya was struggling that much. So he definitely, I feel like Rachel Reid did a great job kind of in that book showing how great he is at hiding these feelings. But that all being said, I also like what's going on Shane's side of things. Shane is like very scared of people finding out, and he is also very much a perfectionist, wants to be the perfect hockey player, and he doesn't think that coming out can fit into that, or his gayness fits into that, just in general. So he's like very shielded, very guarded, and on edge a lot of the time, and that's also difficult to read because he's supposed, like, this is a sport he loves, yet he has so many negative connotations to it that he's not even fully realizing. So I think that is also really interesting. And I don't know, I have a I have a sunken feeling in my gut. I feel like Batcha is gonna go down in the second half, and I'm not emotionally ready for that. So I am 300 pages into the long game, and I wanted to update you just to say that I made it through the devastating part. I hope. God, please don't give me another part like that. Because as I said in my previous update, we had matched the timeline of role model. And I believe I mentioned in my thoughts on role model that there is like this big thing that happens. And after the events of that series is a moment where I did notice it definitely affecting Ilya's mental health. And that's a moment where I did see where you were struggling in that book. So I was not ready for how that was going to go in this book. And actually seeing this in a monologue, what he was thinking, what he was doing. And I was white. That wrecked me so much. Like, I cried, I sobbed, But I do think that that was a bit of a turning point in kind of Shane and Ilya's misunderstandings with each other a little bit. Even though, like, their issues aren't fully worked out yet, but I feel like they are more on the same page than they were before. So it feels like since then we've been in an upward trajectory, but like, I have 100 pages left. I have a feeling something bad's gonna happen before the end. I'm not ready for that. My heart can only handle happiness right now. Okay, so I finished a long game. And this wrecked my soul, as you saw. The last 100 pages definitely improved on things. I feel like we were in a much happier place for most of it, but like, even I felt anxiety throughout so much of it, and ultimately the thing I was fearing to happen happened. And that was not fun. But again, something I love about this book is just how Shane and Ilya's relationship just stays strong throughout the entire thing. Like, that's never something that's in question, their feelings for each other. And it just kind of like the strong foundation throughout this entire book as much as I'm struggling. But I also just really liked the development they went through in this book, and I just 5 stars. I guess that wasn't obvious from my updates, but I feel like in my previous updates I talked enough about kind of how I felt about this book. And yeah, I have now fully caught up on the Game Changer series. So I thought something that would be fun is to do like a little ranking of the books. So I do want to preface this ranking by saying that all of these are 4 or 5 star, so it's not like I dislike any of these books, but like one book has to be at the bottom, and for me that is Tough Guy. Just it wasn't my favorite. Then we have Common Goal. This is my other 4 stars, so that makes sense. From now on they're all 5, so it's all good. I have to say from this point onward it got really difficult, but I think next, and this is gonna be sacrilegious to some people, I'm gonna put Heated Rivalry. I know this is like the most popular book of the series, but it's my truth. And then I'm gonna put Role Model because I feel like if you know me, this is no surprise, I gushed over this book quite a bit. And then of course The Long Game. If you're gonna wreck my soul, you deserve to be high up. And then at number 1, I am gonna put Game Changer. I'm sorry, this is the first book, and nothing topped it for me. I'm so sorry. I also know that's unpopular, but I do feel like these are on the same level for me. It's just that this one destroyed my soul and this one made me happy and giddy and excited, and I'd rather be happy, giddy and excited, so I put that one first. But like technically these are the same spot. I can't do that in an actual ranking, so this is the final ranking. Please don't shout at me if it's not yours. But I would love to know your ranking of the series in the comments. I think that's very interesting, see what other books connect with people, and I also would just love to know your thoughts on each book, the entire series. You can go into spoilers if you want to. Just leave a little spoiler warning at the top of your comment so people who have not yet read the series but have watched this video know not to read your comment. And then hopefully I'll see you next time. Good.